Oh, shucks, go Bucks. Ohio State number 3, Texas number 1, but not for long. Ohio State takes down AP and coaches poll number 1 Texas in what was a defensive struggle, 14-7. Ron, defending champs, took care of Sark at home, no problem, in what was an incredible defensive battle. I want to talk about a little bit to the lead up, and then we're going to talk about, obviously, the game and the ins and outs. My brother, I didn't think it would be this much of a defensive struggle. I didn't think about it at all. Honestly, all the hype we heard around Arch Manning, all the hype we heard about, this Ohio State group of receivers, I thought this game would be closer to 28-24, and boy, was I wrong. Got a little spooky there at the end, but I want to open up talking about the defenses. Pete Kwiatkowski on the Texas side and the new DC for Ohio State, Matt Patricia, with an absolute masterclass.
An absolute masterclass to start. Great to be back here on Bleacher Report for a third year covering the Buckeyes. And what a way to start the year, Chris. You know the best thing about being 1-0.
The chance to go 2-0.
And the Buckeyes have that chance. Glad to be back here. And, man, a lot has been made about Matt Patricia in this hire. A lot of people laughed at the Buckeyes, and I don't think I saw a single Buckeye fan wishing for Jim Knowles back at all during that game. It seemed like the Buckeyes were more than happy with their new play caller on the defensive side of the ball.
No, I mean, I was really happy. I saw a lot of cool things really early. I mean, one of the things that really piqued my interest kind of early on in this game was a couple of the third downs. You saw multiple defensive linemen and linebackers all kind of standing up, roaming. That's something that he did a lot at with New England, and what made their defense so confusing. You heard all the quarterbacks that played New England talk about the seeing ghosts, right? Now, for this game in particular, I was wondering if we would see that, because what has Larry Johnson been so keen on, at least we've heard, 4 down defensive linemen. But for this game, we saw guys creating confusion, and in particular, Arvo Reese lined up to Sonny Styles was wreaking havoc, especially in the first half. It felt like Arvo Reese was involved in every single play.
Yeah, you bring up Arvell Reese, pictured right there on the screen. A lot of people asking about who these Buckeye linebackers were. I talked to Anand Nanduri, a player profiler, this week. He used to cover the Lions back in the day, and I asked him, what's the calling card of this Matt Patricia defense? And he said linebackers. And you saw it on full display out there with the performance of Arvell Reese and then him combined with Sonny Styles. You have a guy like Sonny Styles, 6'4", 240-some pounds, and you say when you're matching up against someone like that, well, most teams don't have 2 of those guys. Well, the Buckeyes do, and a guy like Arvell Reese, a guy that is 6'4", 244 pounds, bigger than C.J. Hicks, the guy who made a huge play at the end of the game coming off the edge, and you have this guy playing Sam linebacker, flying from sideline to sideline and then lining up on the edge. This guy is an absolute tank out there.
Honestly, it's funny you said, like, not a lot of teams have 2 of those guys, but does Ohio State have 3?
And Riley Pettichon, you have another guy right behind him in a true freshman, an absolute freak of nature, a guy that you expect to see more of later this year. The Buckeyes absolutely loaded, and you see it on full display in the final drive with a guy like Devin Sanchez, true freshman, number 1 cornerback in the country coming into the year, out there getting meaningful snaps with the game on the line. Matt Patricia has to be smiling from ear to ear after this performance today in the shoe, given all of the talent and weapons he has to deal with on the defensive side of the ball.
One of the things I did notice was there was a ton of rotation. Like last year, one of the things that I think, honestly, I was really disappointed in was like not a lot of the young guys got in, and not a lot of guys in general got in other than the starters. But for this one in particular against Texas, I thought we could have that be the case again. But Matt Patricia must trust his teaching a lot because, like you said, a lot of bodies got out there. Like we saw Caden Curry a ton. We saw Bo Atkinson a ton. We saw C.J. Hicks a ton. I mean, we're talking about, a group that did a great job. And don't get it twisted. Shutting down a Sark offense, no matter how good you think Arch Manning is very, very difficult. Doing it with a first-time DC, I think, honestly, I don't want to toot my own horn. I think the theory is going to hold up, though. The coordinators from the NFL that come down and get tasked with shutting down college coordinators, we've seen them now over the last 4 years have a ton of success. And today, I'll add, Ron, is an extra data point with that, right?
Absolutely. Another data point, we talked about it during our game preview about this chess match between Sarkisian and Matt Patricia. And everybody that we talked to said the advantage seemed to tip the scale towards Steve Sarkisian, given the, I guess, falling out of grace that Matt Patricia has had post three Super Bowls. And I'm out there like, I'm going to go with the guy that Bill Belichick trusted to run his Super Bowl defenses. And if he's good enough for Ryan Day and Bill Belichick, who am I to question Matt Patricia? And he goes out there and reminds people, hey, things are a little bit different in the NFL, and I'm going to be just fine right here in college football.
Here's the thing. In NFL football, you have to try to get every schematic advantage you can have. You're more accustomed to that because you're playing in a league that's set up for you to go 8-8. So you get so good at finding kind of the areas where you can capitalize, especially defensively. He's used to scheming up against equal talent because that's all you do in the NFL. In college, you have what, 1 to 3 games a year where you're scheming up equal talent, right?
Absolutely. And you go back all the way to Jim Knowles when he first got there. Yeah, you don't have the talent advantage that you have. You talk about the talent advantage you have, and that was an eye-opener for Jim Knowles when he got here because he had never seen talent like this. And a lot of people question, was Jim Knowles' success at Ohio State based on the talent that he had or his scheme? And I think it's a combination of both. But you're seeing from Matt Patricia, with that much talent out there, there's a lot of schemes that'll work.
Yeah, no, that's real. I do want to talk running backs real briefly and kind of get some of your thoughts. We'll talk all the position groups and kind of see what we get into. But I thought, the intel that I had leading into it was that we would see a lot of James Peoples. It seems like the running back that this staff trusts is C.J. Donaldson Jr.
Yeah, he's a guy that just falls forward. And I felt like in years past when we've watched Ryan Day offenses struggle, that was an issue. We would just get stopped right at the line of scrimmage. And that's a guy whose legs never stop turning. A former tight end at West Virginia was up to almost 250 pounds, was 245 pounds when he got to Ohio State. And Coach Mariotti was having absolutely none of that, got him down to 225 as he's playing the power back position and lead back, given the touches in this game for the Buckeyes. And to have a battering ram like that for a young quarterback, it has to be nice for Brian Hartline to be able to rely on a guy like that they know that they can get tough yards. And you saw the Buckeyes really run heavy in short yardage situations. And in years past, we've seen goofy play calls in the red zone. We've brought in backup quarterbacks in the red zone. And Ryan Day had talked for years about wanting to be able to run the ball when everybody in the stadium knows that you're running the ball. Mm-hmm. And the Buckeyes have been able to do that with success for the past 2 years, and they did it again in week 1 against the Texas Longhorns, a team that a lot of people were questioning the Buckeyes' ability to run the ball against.
I want to compliment the offensive line, especially because a lot of times in week 1, Ron, what do we see from offensive line? They don't look that good.
They don't look that good. They struggle with communication. I think being at home helped them a ton, but no procedural penalties for the most part. I think there might have been one, a holding call on Luke Montgomery, but overall, we talked preseason that this could be a Joe Moore contending offensive line. They return the interior of the offensive line from the national championship squad. They go out and get a guy like Ethan Onua, a high price tag guy out of the transfer portal. And the Buckeyes are so loaded on offensive line, they used their other transfer in Phillip Daniels at right tackle and a homegrown product in Austin Sareveld, a third-year guy getting to start at left tackle and a captain already. Loved what I saw out of the offensive line in game 1, especially in a high-pressure situation like that.
No, they looked fantastic. I do want to ask one question about the offensive line. Well, did you on the holding call in the end zone? Because I saw. I'm like, oh no, oh my god! I was freaking out there because down there naturally, when you are backed up against your own end zone, there is a lot of anxiety, and there's a lot of anxiety, especially because it's a first-time quarterback and a first-time running back, and it's and a first-time play caller. I'm sure we'll find out more about who called the plays, but man, when I saw that, I'm like, oh gosh. Here comes the unraveling. Luckily, it was a hands to the face because that would have been the one that maybe you'll think oh, look how bad this offensive line is, even though no matter what direction that went, they blocked really well up front.
Yeah, and I think that was a heads-up play because even though it was a holding in the end zone, if they don't call that hands to the face, it's a sack anyways if he blows straight through the offensive line. So a heads-up play there to really get his hands on them, and Julian Sayin was able to get the ball away. My heart stopped there for a second when I thought that we got a safety.
No, extremely stressful because obviously 2 points and the ball. And
given our punting situation too, I didn't want to see any punts after his safety.
Given, some of the things that happened, I felt like our defense was so good. The last thing I wanted was to give their offense a spark. And what gives a spark? Great field position and the momentum of a safety. That really had a chance to kind of swing the tide of the game. It didn't end up doing that. I want to ask you, what were your thoughts on how the game was called? First time play caller, Brian Hartline. It was him. Obviously, the Fox, broadcast was trying to start a narrative with Jeremiah Smith. Some of the early cuts to him being frustrated because he's competitive. That's just how it is. They try to I felt them trying to make a narrative and not showing that Ryan Wingo was also, I guess, pretty upset because he didn't get a target on each of the Texans' first 3 possessions, but neither here nor there. What did you think about Brian Hartline and the job he did in his first game in what was against a mammoth in Texas?
I think he did a great job of staying balanced. We've seen the Buckeyes abandon the run in the past when it doesn't work early. I felt like the Buckeyes were consistent with their game plan of wanting to run the ball. They did a good job rotating the backs and getting a lot of people, getting James Peoples and CJ Donaldson a lot of touches. And I felt like that gave Julian Sayin time to get comfortable. And it didn't take long for Julian Sayin to get comfortable because you see Jeremiah Smith pictured right there. 2 uncharacteristic drops early in this game, and then a drop from Max Clare. The visible frustration was after Julian Sayin missed him on a huge shot play on the first drive. Max Clare ends up dropping the ball on the sidelines. I think the combination of the frustration was not only did you miss me, we threw it to someone that dropped the ball when we could have continued to drive. A guy that's very selfless when it comes to his team. He's talked many a times about being willing to accept the role of potentially being a decoy or doing whatever it takes for this team to win. And I hated that narrative on the broadcast that he was almost trying to put the diva label on him when we know that's far from the truth regarding him. But we did hear reports coming out of practice. Our guy, Chimity Checkwell, former Buckeye, got a chance to go to practice and was talking about how pass happy it felt like the offense was. And to see them come out there with true balance and run the ball with success, it was great to see for a first-time play caller, especially given the stakes.
I do want to talk about that 4th down call, that 4th down play. I don't know how you feel. The broadcast tried to make it seem like Ryan was talking to him about Jeremiah Smith. I don't think Julian made the wrong decision there. I think Julian made the right decision, 100% right decision. I mean, I get what Ryan Day is saying about a one-on-one shot, but this is a first-time quarterback on 4th down. And he's got his tight end open. Like, if it was 3rd and 1, yeah, maybe I get it. But the 4th and 1, I thought he made the right decision.
Yeah, in years past, in quarterback battles past, we know Ryan Day, sometimes even the completion, he'll ding a quarterback if it's not where the play was designed to go or he intended it to go. And I disagree with the broadcast as far as Jeremiah's frustration, but I do agree. I think Ryan Day wanted that ball to go to Jeremiah there.
You do? Okay. I do. I thought there's no way you would call a go route for a first time starting quarterback on a 4th down. Look, Ron, what do I always say? The best friends in Ryan Day's offense, and especially for a first time quarterback, young quarterback, is the tight ends and the slot guys. I don't know. I wasn't really too mad at it, but it does make sense from that point of view. I think if it was end of the year, or here we go, I think if it was Will Howard.
Yeah, but I feel like that speaks to the standard that Ryan Day holds his quarterbacks to, that, hey, you're a first-time starter. You have every excuse in the world. And Ryan Day's still not happy with it. Like, he made a good read. He put it right on the money for Max Clare, and Ryan Day, still the ultimate coach, still coaching his guy up.
Yeah, and they paid a lot of money for Max Clare too. Honestly, those drops on those first couple drives, that's kind of what derailed things. I thought the Jeremiah Smith drop that he had on the out route, he could have cut that up, and I'm not sure, who felt like tackling him, because we've seen how guys have been. It is interesting. I'm already starting to see the Jeremiah Smith getting the Shaq treatment. We're allowed to foul you. We're just not allowed to flagrant foul you. There were a couple times where, Muhammad was dangled all over him, pulling him way beforehand, really grabbing him. And no call, no penalty. Now, there was one that came on, but that was an egregious one. It does feel like he's going to get the Shaq treatment. I want to ask you about the quarterbacks. Arch Manning, Julian Sayin, did they live up to the hype? Are you going to judge Arch Manning off of this game? I'll go first, actually. I am worried that this game will put Arch Manning in a similar category to Drew Aller. I'm not comparing him to Drew Aller, but this is where I'm at. When Drew Aller was a 5-star all-everything kid, he had 2 games that everybody watched. It was against Ohio State and it was against Michigan. At the time, the 2 best defenses in the entire sport, and he played poorly in those games. I think Arch Manning, it optically looks like he did not play great in these games. I don't think it's because he's overrated. I think it's because he ran into a buzzsaw of a defense. And I think over the next couple weeks, we're going to watch Arch Manning put up a bunch of yards and put up some huge numbers. And it will strengthen the fact that the Ohio State defense is very, very good. And Arch Manning isn't overrated. This defense and Matt Patricia is just that good. Agree or disagree?
You hit the nail on the head. I couldn't agree any more there, because I was going to say, my feelings about Arch Manning during the first half of the game versus the second half of the game was just a reminder, because I gave you a call after the Georgia Tech game, and I said, man, that game was a mess. And you're like, well, that's what it looks like in week 1. And I felt like you just saw Arch Manning, a first-time starter out there week 1. Julian Sayin seemed to handle the situation much better, especially early on. But I feel like Arch Manning flashed towards the end of the game and showed you why there's been so much hype around them. Do I think he is as great as everyone hyped him up to be preseason when everybody wanted to rename the Heisman the Manning? No, I think that was overblown. But I do think Arch Manning has a ton of potential, and I think this Texas team still has a lot to hope for going forward with this season. But you can't say enough about the performance from Julian Sayin and the poise that he had in that start. He goes out there against the number 1 team in the country in his debut start, a guy with all the pressure in the world on him. Captain of the Buckeyes, Brandon Innes, gave him a call earlier in the week just to let him know, hey, I'm proud of you, and I know you have a ton of pressure on your shoulders. Just go out there and be you. A lot of talk during the offseason about Julian Sayin was about his leadership and command of the huddle. And I think you could argue that Julian Sayin was the most poised player on that offense through the first quarter of the game, and he had the highest expectations. So to see him go out there and lead the team, Ryan Day had one message to his quarterback this entire fall camp: just win, baby. And he went out there and did just that. I'm super excited to see a confident Julian, because a lot of people worried about this first start against Texas potentially rattling the mental of a potential superstar quarterback that the Buckeyes could have. And he should be riding high in Columbus, beating the number 1 team at home.
Yeah, no, he looked apart. And one of the things I look for with quarterbacks is, like, especially young guys in their first start, is how much does your heart rate speed up? It looked like his heart rate didn't speed up at all. It looked cool, concise, calm, Cali cool, whatever you want to call it. Cali kid. Like, it was really cool, man. And he also didn't try to do too much. There were times I thought Arch Manning maybe try to do a little bit too much pepper on a ball, threw a ball behind someone trying to aim it a little bit. Julian Sayin made some big time throws. And the one throw that, honestly, the drive ended with a punt, but the throw he had where he rolled out and he was in the end zone and threw it to Carnell Tate, that was the most impressive throw of the entire day for him, because he stayed calm, knew what he had there, and did not make a mistake under pressure, which was my big concern. I'm all in on Julian Sayin. It's here. Like, he early, very quickly checked the box. I had a couple boxes going into this game, Rob. It was Brian Hartline calling plays. It was the offensive line. It was Julian Sayin. The one that checked the box first, Julian Sayin. I'm in.
Julian Sayin absolutely checks the box, and we've talked about a scenario all off season about, we feel like we've never seen a complete Ryan Day team. We watched him break every passing record in the Big Ten with Dwayne Haskins. Nick Bosa gets hurt that season. The defense struggles and is giving up a ton of points. Had it a little bit in Justin Fields' first year in 2019, but then you've watched the Buckeyes either have it on offense or not quite have it on defense. It feels like this might be the year that Ryan Day has his top 10 offense with a first-round quarterback.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. And someone who was kind of groomed by Ryan Day. And I mean, this is a kid who checks every throwing box that he wants. And honestly, we know Ryan Day doesn't really want to run the quarterback. And so, but you want to have someone that's mobile enough. The issue with Kyle was he was a statue, and I guess wasn't as cool and calm, as collected as you would have wanted him to be. Julian Sayin feels like he can take Ryan Day's style of coaching without it shattering him, or Ryan Day's definitely learned enough about himself to kind of make the pivot when he coaches Julian. This was very, very impressive, and Ohio State should absolutely without a doubt, be the number one team in the country next week, followed by Penn State. Next year, too, while we're here.
Well, given the performance by Julian Sayin, you bring back Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith.
2 more years. I can't believe this is my life.
I can't believe this is my life. I did a show and said the X factor of this game would be Ohio State's wide receivers. I just don't see there being a secondary in the country that are able to stop them. And man, I have to give kudos to this Texas secondary because I felt like they did a good job of bottling them up. You talked about the visible frustration of Jeremiah Smith, but who knows if we're having this conversation if Julian Sayin finds them on that first drive and they open up with a huge blur to start the game. So super excited to see where this offense is going, and I feel like it's almost a sigh of relief for Ryan Day as they pivot to this next chapter of the season now that they've gotten this big one out of the way.
What a luxury as well. One of the also things I'll say about Matt Patricia is that, like, in NFL, week to week, every game is really close, and his heart rate was not sped up at all. Kind of things got a little bit dicey there at the end. You know, there was reason for the nerves to start to creep back in when it's 7-14 and Texas gets the ball back. But you got to remember, Patricia's been there 100 times. This probably doesn't rank in the top 50 most stressful moments, and he took care of business, and it was really thrilling to watch. How often do you get to beat the number one team in the country and feel like, wow, we're going to improve a ton after that? You know what I'm saying? Like we just beat the number one team in the country, and they are going to improve a ton, and that is a very nice feeling to have as an Ohio State fan.
We only saw 2 running backs make an appearance in that game. C.J. Donaldson ran for 3.5 yards per carry. James Peoples 2 yards per carry. You expect that to eventually go up throughout the season, and the Buckeyes find more success in the run game, especially as they get more creative in the run game. Julian Sayin, 13 of 20, 126 yards and a touchdown. Nothing that we saw from that offense should give Buckeye fans any concern as far as this looking just like any other Ryan Day offense that is able to put up points at will. They just happen to be going against the number one team in the country. Buckeye fans have to be ecstatic given that performance with all of the meat left on the bone as far as what the Buckeyes can improve on. Ryan Day talked about it in his press conference this week and said, hey, we want to get out there. We want to get this win, put some stuff on film, and learn from the mistakes that we made in this game. And it's much more exciting that the Buckeyes are going to be learning from mistakes in a win than in a loss to start the season.
Yeah, 100%. Now, for you, I guess, what's the one area you want to see improved upon next week? Is it just the passing game, just the offense, or something that you had in mind?
I just want to see overall more efficiency from the offense. Okay. I would like to see the Buckeyes be able to move the ball. I mean, they're playing Grambling, so I would imagine they don't have many corners prepared to see Jeremiah Smith. But I feel like the Buckeyes are going to get things rolling on offense. I'd like to see both running backs get going. I felt like James Peoples struggled a little bit, but again, the holes weren't there. We haven't had a chance to see the all-22 and what he was seeing out there. I would just like to see the Buckeyes run the ball with a little bit more efficiency, a little bit more yards per carry. And then Jeremiah Smith, just waiting for him to be Jeremiah Smith. And the fact that we came out of here with a win, and this is the second time we've played Texas, and he hasn't had to make a huge impact, and you have a guy like Carnell Tate that can come up with a huge win or a huge catch for the win. It's an embarrassment of riches for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, when anytime you can win without your best player going nuclear is a huge it's a huge testament to like how your team is built. I do want to give some major flowers defensively to Jermaine Matthews, who was wonderful all game. I know he let up the touchdown there at the very end, but I thought he was fantastic kind of by himself for most of the game, man.
Yeah, you bring up the secondary. Jermaine Matthews, a guy that we have been hyping up since he committed to Ohio State. It was on his way to Cincinnati and camped for the Buckeyes and was a last-minute grab by the Buckeyes a few years back. I was super high on his tape coming out of high school. Freshman year, he had one of the best coverage PFF grades in the nation. And a lot of people questioned his Buckeye defense and all of the new starters. And 2 of the names that we're talking about the most are Jermaine Matthews and Arvell Reese, 2 names that Buckeye fans have been beyond familiar with and have been trying to tell the nation, I get it. We just won the national championship and we just sent 15 guys to the NFL. But wait till you see who was behind them. And Cody Simon, a guy who's looking like he's about to start for the Arizona Cardinals, he's replaced by a 6'4" freak show from Glenville named Arvell Reese. And then you see Denzel Burke also on the Cardinals in the NFL, replaced by this kid out of Cincinnati in Jermaine Matthews. You love to see the production from the Ohio kids. But I also wanted to give a shout out to a non-Ohio kid that made his mark on the game early, and that's Devin Sanchez. To see a true freshman, number one cornerback in the country, have the faith of the coaching staff that they put him out there with the game on the line speaks to how talented he is and the belief that the staff has in him. I think it's only up from here for the Buckeyes. A lot of young guys getting their first starts, a lot of guys getting their first time on the field, and there's still plenty of games to play for this Buckeye team to improve. Before the season, I talked about not overreacting to the start of the season based on this game, given how difficult the matchup was and how much we watched the Buckeyes improve over the course of the season. Even Nebraska game to the Michigan game to then the team that we saw against Tennessee. I mean, those are three completely different versions of the Buckeyes that we saw last year. And I'm interested to see with these new coordinators, CEO Ryan Day, what this team looks like come December.
Before we get out of here, give me your defensive player of the game.
My defensive player of the game has to be Arvell Reese, a guy with huge expectations and massive shoes to fill, and a guy like Cody Simon, the former Block O wearer on the team, Sonny Styles, a captain and Block O recipient this year, and all the talk is about the kid out of Glenville. And to see Arvell Reese come out there and make a statement, I always love to see guys out there confirm what we're hearing out of practice. Right. And that was a name that we talked about all off season. I had the chance to go to practice during fall camp for a couple days. And during one of the practices, Arvell Reese took a swipe at starting center Carson Hinsman. And I tweeted out, the Buckeyes have a defense full of crash outs. These are a bunch of guys that are not afraid out there on that field. And to see that level of energy in our practices, I couldn't wait to see that guy get out on the field. And he made his mark in game one.
Arvell Reese finished the game with 9 total tackles, 4 solo tackles, and a sack, which I believe was the only one of the game. Felt like he was involved in everything. There were a couple times I thought he had a chance for 2 or 3 sacks. It was really incredible for him to go out there and, again, confirm what we've been hearing. Mine's Igbinosun. I just want to give Igbinosun flowers. Iggy was really good. I don't believe he got a single penalty too, right?
No penalties.
10 tackles, 4 solo, 1 pass deflection, had him strapped all day. And he told us in the interview process that he wants to find the football sooner and be less grabby. Mission accomplished. Well
Felt
done.
like even on the play where Parker Livingston caught the pass on Jermaine Matthews, his head was around before that ball was there. So the fact that our players are getting their head around, and Jermaine was able to come up with an interception in week 1. Super exciting about the takeaways. A little bit of bad news, not so bad news, not great news. Kenyatta Jackson doesn't finish the game, was in the concussion protocol. They took his helmet off of him, a guy that projects to be an NFL defensive end, and for the Buckeyes to be able to get it done in the second half, especially with depth concerns on the defensive line. One of the biggest questions coming into the season, they go out and they get Bo Atkinson, they add Logan George, CJ Hicks moves down to the defensive end room, and CJ Hicks, final play of the game, a guy that we've been talking about for years, 5-star homegrown Ohio linebacker, has been turned on by the fan base. A lot of people have given up on the former 5-star product, given his position change and his lack of production. And to see him out there making a play against the number 1 team in the country, the final play of the game was super exciting to see from CJ. And it speaks to the depth that, hey, we lost Kenyatta Jackson, the number 1 defensive end on this defense, and Buckeyes were able to get it done in the second half still.
Who is your offensive player of the game?
CJ Donaldson. It might not have been pretty. He might not have had the most yards per carry, but that was tough running out there and a level of physicality that I like to see. And for a team and program that has been questioned about their toughness, to bring in a guy that's a complete battering ram like CJ Donaldson, some of the plays weren't even the prettiest runs, but the effort is what I loved, and that's why he gets my MVP.
Mine is Carnell Tate. Just got to love Carnell Tate. I saw him plant Colin Simmons, do his thing blocking-wise. He did a great job. Obviously had the big touchdown. I'm going Carnell. Great adjustment, double catch, SFE. Doesn't get a ton of shine because of, obviously, Jeremiah Smith. Kid was exceptional. Whatever they're doing on there in SFE, keep getting him up to Ohio State. Look, Ron, I think I'm good. I'm ready to get out of here.
I got one more thing for you, Chris.
Oh, what do we got?
Prayers for Paul Feinbaum.
Oh, yes. See your big ears. Oh, my goodness. Dude, he said it was going to be a blowout. He said it was going to be a blowout.
Would Jermaine Matthews say SCC? SCC.
Hey, we're really up for real, man. Our top dog took down their top dog. More to come. So now I'm going to catch myself rooting for Texas the whole way through. I'm excited for the future of this season because, again, like I said earlier in the show, how often do you get to beat the number one team in the country and feel like, wow, we're going to get a lot better? I'm Chris. That's Ron. Ron, do your thing.
You know how this thing ends. It's always go Bucks. And, of course, OH.
I-O.
Should we add one more? Horns down!
Big horns down.